And good morning. I have been listening to this, actually. Let me just show you before I carry on listening to it. Don't know if anybody else has noticed at all. Probably not. Pension Committee. 3 watching. I'm one of them.
Own due diligence. This was over the summer. And we found ourselves in a situation where, and we will go on to explain why this happened under item 10, but we found ourselves in a situation where individual funds were making declarations to their preferred pooling partners. And this is something that we did communicate with Pensions Committee and Pensions Board at the time in early August.
The government turned down a new company.
And this was then played out when the Joint Committee met in early September.
Why another company?
And the recommendation in September was that it was not possible or appropriate for all access funds to agree a single pool destination. So one of those two scenarios, the collective solution for access where all 11 access funds moved en masse, it was not possible to achieve that. And we were left with a situation, and this was noted, if you like, by the Access Joint Committee, where the decision-making, the due diligence, the evaluation by the individual access funds resulted in 4 access funds choosing LGPS Central and 7 access funds choosing Border to Coast. And we'll explain our rationale for that under item 10. So I'm not going to go into that in this report. We'll focus on that under item 10.
Oh, this video is unavailable. Why is this video unavailable, I wonder? Because under the sharing side of things,
ultimately taking individual.
Oh, so that comes up as.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So item 9 is the access update. Do that.
I'm guessing it's finished.
Upon receipt of the letter, by the individual.
Customers most loved.
Adverts. Anyway.
Yep, it's on Prime. Shop now.
I don't want to.
Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist.
Hello, Dr. G. Okay. Chat is disabled for this live stream. It usually is. But one of the things that I noticed in this, you're not playing at all. How interesting. How interesting. It's not playing at all. Let's see if we can... I've got a couple of things to do this morning. I need to email Colin because I saw him at the weekend because there was a fun dog charity. So I will be emailing him back because I asked him if he had received my email. And he said no, he even checked. So all we need to do is, email him and email Wendy, the town clerk, and the police officer, Graham. So I really thought I could listen to that in the background while I'm doing these emails, and we could have listened to it together while I'm doing these emails. And it's gone weird. Weird. It's not even coming up in my history now. Where's it gone? Oh, that's weird. Right, what we're going to do Let's go back to live. Now it's completely gone. It must have finished. So what they'll do is they will then heavily edit it. And then we won't hear half the stuff that I think we're entitled to hear. I mean, they went below the line, I think, during those 15 minutes when they said they were on break. But yeah, they were talking about the old, costs of houses, like 60 odd million pounds for a 28 million investment. All these numbers were just a bit bonkers, to say the least. Oh, what have I done? There we go, that's what I need. If I can remove that. If I can remove that. Let's bring it up on here. Yay, there we go. Okay. So we're going to be writing an email about legal... God, I can't spell it. Hang on. I've got a blank. So they've done the two boards on the park. Or is it town clerk? She might actually come under town clerk. Yeah. Ooh, I think it's that one. God, I'm doing it again. I think it's that one. And we also need the sergeant's email. There we go. Right, his email address. Oh my God, where's it gone? Graham. Not quite sure what's... oh, what did just come up then? Oh, I deleted it too quick. Never had that before. Right, okay. How annoying, we've got nothing to listen to. Because they're not going to let me... Okay, let's do this. I don't like being too big on the screen. Right, in the meantime, let's have a look for Norfolk County Council. Full council. Okay, we want this one. Because they get so heavily... Yeah, it's not on there. So I imagine it's taken down and going to be heavily edited. Yeah, I've listened to the last few, not all of them, but some of them. Oh, look. Let's see if there we go. We'll listen to this. We'll listen to the Norfolk Police and Crime Panel. That was a meeting on the 21st of July, 2025. So this is the one we're going to listen to. We can also see how long they are running late in between time. I need to carry on with this email. So let's do it. What do you reckon? They were...
I think it's 10 o'clock, so we will start the meeting of the Norfolk Police and Crime Panel.
Yep.
First item on the agenda is to receive apologies. Apologies from Jade Martin, Sue Catchpole, as she may be arriving late, and Tristan Ashby, substituted by Helen Crane. I'd also like to highlight that with the change to the membership, Sarah Butikofer is now the main member for North Norfolk District Council, with John Toy being the substitute. Second item on the agenda is election of chair. So if I could please have nominations. Thank you, Stacey.
Sorry, Nicola, I'd like to nominate myself.
No, you'd like to nominate.
Oh, can I not self-nominate?
Yes, absolutely, yes. Yeah, is there a seconder? Mike, you're seconding Stacey, yes? Thank you. Okay, thank you. Are there any other nominations? Stuart.
I nominate Councillor Brownlow.
Okay. And can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, David Bills. So we need to take a vote. So all those in favour for Stacey Palmer, please raise your hand clearly. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. And all those in favour of Councillor Brian Long, please raise your hand clearly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, Councillor Brian Long is duly elected. Please take the chair.
There they are. Sorry. Wait a minute, so she's just nominated herself. Let me just...
Mike, you're seconding Stacey, yes? Thank you. Okay, thank you. Are there any other nominations? Stuart.
I nominate Councillor Brownlow.
Okay. And can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, David Bills. So we need to take a vote. So all those in favour for Stacey Palmer, please raise your hand clearly.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Thank you. And all those in favour of Councillor Brian Long, please raise your hand clearly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, Councillor Brian Long is duly elected. Please take the chair.
Okay. This must be a new committee.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for those that supported me, and glad to hear that somebody else is interested in the job. It hopefully will keep me on my toes. Next item on the agenda is for the election of Vice Chair for the ensuing year. Any nominations, please? Mike, did I see you going to nominate somebody? We normally look for others to nominate. James, Councillor Easter. Sorry, I missed that.
I'll nominate Sarah.
You'll nominate Sarah. Mike seconded. Any other nominations? In which case, Sarah, thank you. You are nominated without the need for a vote. Well done. More than welcome to join me up here when you're ready. Thank you. So the next item we look to is our minutes, which was our last meeting on the 17th of March, which seems now an awfully long while ago. First off, they start on page 4 of our agenda. Are there any queries as to the accuracy, or would I be able to sign those as a true and accurate record? All okay for those present? Thank you. Thanks, John. We don't have matters arising on those, but obviously if there's anything that needs to be picked up, I'm sure they will be later on in the reports from the Commissioner. Members, any interest to declare on items on the agenda as presented? No? No, excellent. Next we move on to updates from myself as Chair. Just referring to the minute 11.2, there was a summit convened by Health Watch Norfolk, which I did attend, to looking at a collaborative approach to scrutiny and the impact of the right care, right person. Very well attended, including select committee chairs from NCC, portfolio holders, etc. And as a result of that, there is an item moving to the agenda of the Health and Wellbeing Board, which will look exactly at how that particular policy is panning out. And that's scheduled to take place on the 3rd of September, so not too far away.
Can they do it on a cold, rainy night in Stoke? Victorian Plumbing!
Have anything further to update. We haven't received any public questions under item 7. Mike, sorry, Councillor Sands.
So I don't know where this fits in. It doesn't really fit in the agenda at all, but the Chief Constable's not here today, but I'd like to give my thanks and appreciation for the conduct of the police in Bowthorpe at that event over the weekend. They were absolutely superb.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I mean, obviously well publicised what they were doing and why. Yeah, that's good to hear. Next item is our balanced appointment objective, which we have to demonstrate across the whole of Norfolk and councillors. The report obviously is presented at page 10. It does, of course, reflect the most recent changes from any elections and by-elections across the county. 3.2.2 outlines what that makeup is, and that leads to a composition of the panel, which is a total of 5 Conservative members, 3 Labour members and 2 Liberal Democrat members, which I believe is what we've got, plus, of course, our 2 independent persons, which remain the same. Presume everyone is all okay with that. It's a mathematical calculation, so it shouldn't be anything other than correct, he says. All okay? Thank you. The next item on page 16 is the panel arrangements and rules of procedure review. Oh, we do indeed. We also, as part of that item, need to endorse Stacey and Renata's continuation as independent persons. Are we all in agreement with that, please? All nods around the room. Thank you. So that's confirmed. And so we move on to ask to review our panel arrangements, rules of procedure. We look at them every year. We're not proposing any radical changes, but obviously if there are any thoughts or suggestions on how we look to amend that, obviously I'm happy to take any suggestions from the floor. Otherwise, they are to endorse. Recommendation 1 is endorse the panel arrangements. Are we all agreed with those? Sarah, Vice Chair, sorry.
Sorry, I just have one small question. It's on page 24, point 6.2. I thought we could probably just remove G from the list there, since we're no longer in the European Parliament. It's not a big, it was just something that...
That's who we may not co-opt.
Well,
the following may not be co-opted members of the PCP.
But we don't need to draw attention to it anymore, do we?
No, that's true, we don't.
I mean, like I said, it's a really minor point.
I mean, in the same way, we're not likely to have a member of the Scottish Parliament here in Norfolk. But,
or a member of the Scottish Parliament.
Or a member of the Assembly for Wales. But they're precluded, so, yeah. If we get any, we'll obviously have to refer them to the rules on 6.2. Remove the need for the exception of the member of the European Parliament as the UK doesn't elect any. Happy? Yes. Delete that one. It's a good point, Sarah. I mean, it's a list of who shouldn't be, but yeah, we're not likely to have one, so there we go. And recommendation 2, ask to endorse the rules of procedure. We're all happy with those. Recommendation 3, we're asked to endorse the guidance for handling complaints about the conduct of the Commissioner and appoint panel members. And we're, again, not proposing any changes to those procedures. Are we all happy with those? And separately, thanks to all those who have been involved in the sifting procedure when complaints have come forward. So thank you for that. Right. Recommendation 4 is asked to appoint members of the complaints panel for those members who are handling PCC conduct complaints. Are those previously volunteered? Are you all happy to continue? I see nodding heads. Thank you, Stacey. Thanks for nodding. Yeah. All. Yep. So they will be as per. Thank you. Oh, John, were you on that assessment panel? Yes. Perhaps look to replace him then, Sarah. You're happy to do that. Yeah, that's helpful having the vice chair, because if it then comes to a further down the process, then the chair separately gets involved. So that's quite helpful. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. And panel, we've done that. Right, that should see us on to item 10. It starts on page 61. It is, I think, the first update based on the Commissioner's own plan rather than a performance progression on the previous plans. Commissioner, thank you for the report. Just ask if you would like to introduce your report and any comments you wish to make at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so...
An advert! What an advert!
This is a very curious situation to be in because it's the first report presented on the new police and crime plan, and many thanks to the team who've worked on it. And I think this will be shared by members of the panel. It is 49 pages, the report. So you have taken due regard of all the comments received by yourselves over the previous years. So I hope that that is useful. Just as a point of detail before I get into my main sort of comments just now, with respect to, on page 18, 4.33, I've spoken with the team about the fact that within the police and crime plan, matters relating to rural communities is not only about rural/agricultural type crime and wildlife crime. So I've asked them specifically to broaden the scope of that in the spirit of the police and crime plan, just so you're aware that I've already sort of picked that up. And that will change for the next series of papers. So the reason why this is a curious day is because the week started with a meeting with the Home Office, which the devolution priority area PCCs were informed that our term will be ending on the 1st of April 2027. So that is the decision made. The mayoral elections are due to take place, as you know, in May next year. So there'll be functionally a transition period before the PCC in Norfolk, the PCC role. That function is then transitioned into the mayoral role. So all of an 11-month transition period in effect. So I want to obviously inform you as the Police and Crime Panel that that transition period has already started, and it's important that I explain to you what that means, because there's a very real challenge for the team that supports the PCC in Norfolk, which is one of just the business end of affecting that transition. So the team have given me this little bit of light reading, which is the transition arrangements for West Yorkshire, which transitioned into that mayoralty some time ago, and the work for that still has not been completed. It is vast. And so I do need to stress that, yes, as I started, welcoming the concision of these papers, but I really must stress that this team is now under considerable pressure in terms of capacity and resource, because they, on top of the business as usual function, must deal with the business of affecting what is an extremely, it is the most complicated transition arrangements in the country, because of course we've got 2 constabularies, 2 offices of the PCCs transitioning into a single combined county authority model. And of course that CCO, we do not yet know what that looks like. So if you could please bear that in mind. I speak on behalf of the team behind me. I know that they will be grateful, and there is just a level of, whilst we have certainty on the time, and you know, that has been absent for the last 9 months, and we've been working under those somewhat interesting conditions. You know, whilst we've got certainty on that now, there is this new challenge with respect to resourcing and capacity within the team. So if I could ask you to bear that in mind, please, going forward. I think everyone on this side of the room would be very grateful. Hopefully that is helpful. We'll see what emerges as we go forward today. But that just changes it certainly changes the landscape on the delivery of the police and crime plan, if that's not extremely obvious. So just probably need to say that out loud. because clearly, or perhaps not clearly, for the avoidance of all doubt, I am very mindful of the fact that a mayoral candidate will be coming forward as early as, you know, in the next couple of months potentially, and they will have views on what they will expect the police and crime plan to look like. They will have views on what policing looks like in the county. I'm completely alive and respectful of that position. I'm therefore completely alive and respectful of the requirement for me to take that into account in terms of commissioning and costs decisions basically going forward. I'm very respectful of the period that my term now deals with, and you will appreciate that the information in the papers before you considerably predate, not least because I've been on leave, considerably predate that decision. So we will need to revisit the action plan. I hope the reasons for that are extremely obvious. And I think we can, with good reason, see a reduction in the expected work because there is less time, basically. And also we do have to be, we collectively have to be mindful and respectful of that transition period from May next year. So sorry that that last bit is vague, but I just wanted to make that absolutely explicit, that that piece of work will be happening because capacity and resource will be reduced as a consequence of this. And so once we understand what that looks like, certainly that will come through to the next panel as well.
Yeah, well, thank you for the, earliest of heads up that, what is happening, because it has been very much an unknown and really uncertainty for yourself and the staff. And I think when you stand for election, as most of us in the room have stood for election, you expect to be able to see out the term that you're elected for and deliver on what you set out to do. And obviously with a squeezed time, that's obviously going to be difficult. And I'm sure that the panel in its scrutiny and reflection of that will obviously bear that in mind, because obviously if things were in the scheme to be delivered after 2027, it's going to be down to that newly elected mayor for Norfolk and Suffolk Combined Authority.
So if I can just expand on that briefly, not only is it up to the new mayor or the new PCC, the intention is still, as I understand it, that those two functions be retained separately legally. But as happens in other mayoral authorities, the mayor has both and then perhaps deputises or delegates the one, or in this instance, the two, because we have Norfolk and Suffolk. They will still have that legal obligation to create a police and crime plan. So with immense sympathy towards the police, they're going to have more change, and both constabularies are going to be faced with that increased level of change that they must also navigate. So just to be completely clear, I'm not talking only about work that's programmed in beyond April 1st, 2027. I'm also talking about the work between now and April 1st, because the transition work is huge. And this team are not miracle workers, bluntly. They cannot possibly engage with this comprehensive action plan and the mission that I've kind of set them and deal with that transition period in a robust enough way to ensure that continuity of service across things like, I know it's somewhat separate, but there is a melange of resource in the office. Things like the community safety partnership, the road safety partnership, all those different partnership areas of working. It is absolutely critical that those are sustained over this period. So I just want to make that absolutely clear. It isn't the intention to slash and burn on the action plan, but I do need to be alive to those commissioning decisions and not extending or overreaching my term, basically, as a result of that.
That's much appreciated. Questions from the panel. I've got Stacey first, and then I've got Stuart. Stacey.
Thank you, Chair. I guess it's pointing to what the Commissioner has just described to us, and thank you for being so candid in your explanation as to where things sit currently. That's really useful. Chair, I'm wondering how best we deal with the sort of changes to the action plan and the detail around that, because I think previously we went through sort of a briefing session with the Commissioner where she talked at length with us about her priorities, and clearly that's going to shift. I wonder whether in this instance, a separate briefing around sort of her new priorities might be useful, and then obviously the public forum conversation to approve that, whether that would be something we might want to discuss and consider.
And I absolutely see where you're coming from. I was going to look at it slightly a different way to that. We've got a period of time between now and our next scheduled meeting. The news has only just been forthcoming. I think between now and then, it would be fair and reasonable to say, review what your plan is and look at what is deliverable, what you expect the timescales to be able to be, and then come back to the panel at a later point with what that looks like, both for us and for yourselves, because it's unfair that we would put expectations and say, well, we want this one delivered and not that one, because it's not our plan, it's your plan, Sarah. So we want to give you the fairest chance to come back to us, obviously with the news that you've given us that's really hot off the press, because in the same way your office will finish, our need to scrutinise your office will probably finish as well, and we haven't heard anything yet from the Home Office or otherwise as to what that will look like or otherwise. So if that's helpful, that will give you a chance to reassess. Stacey, is that tick the box, or yeah?
I think so. I think we're on the same page. It was more around whether we need to sort of go into the depths of the new priorities in this public forum, whether we can do that in a private briefing as opposed to kind of going through that here.
Thank you. Mike, Councillor Sands. Oh, Sarah, we'll come back on that, yep. And that also got to
It's possibly worth me just clarifying, just in the interest of disentangling some of the terms. So there is no intention whatsoever for the priorities that are established within the plan to change. Those kind of priorities are absolutely set, and they'll still guide decisions going forward, albeit in an exciting new context. The piece of work that definitely does need reviewing is in effect the delivery plan, the summary of which is provided at page 94 onwards of the papers, and it's really that. It's the sort of nuts and bolts of the work which will be reviewed. I'm grateful for your suggestion, though, in terms of just taking that offline. I think that opportunity will be helpful. Completely agree, Chair. This team needs more than 3 days to kind of organise our thoughts really on what the practical reality is on that. So, no, that would be great. Thank you.
Mike on then, sorry. I've got Stuart next and then I've got Mike. Sorry, Stuart.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, similar to other thoughts on this, obviously our role is to challenge, support, and enable as well. And in this case, it's around support. It's we need to understand fairly quickly the impacts on the office of the PCC, but also the impacts potentially on policing. And what we tend to quite often overlook is the part of the PCC around and crime, because change is unsettling. And you've got a number of third sector organisations that rely on the office of the PCC for funding, and particularly multi-year funding, because that enables them to have certainty. And quite clearly, this change is going to cause ripples. So for us, I put around our forward work plan. It may be important when you've had time to digest and understand more around what the process is, for us all to kind of have regular briefings around this, because this is a major issue for policing, and we need to understand the impacts on the PCC and us and others. So that would be my recommendation. But anything we can do to help with that transition, we need to. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We're here to support, and we're going to live through the transition with you. It doesn't affect us as much as it does you and your staff, but yeah, we can definitely relate to it, and we will help rather than hinder that process, because at the end of the day, we want the smoothest transition to keep the monitoring of what goes on and the effectiveness to the very fore, because we want the very best for the residents of Norfolk, and that's pretty much why we're all here, isn't it? Sarah?
If I may just let you know what we've already sort of started, because your point is absolutely on the money as far as I'm concerned. My number one concern is, as I mentioned before, is that service continuity, not just of policing, which I have already got considerable assurance from the Chief Constable. As you'd expect, all of the Chief Constables, to my understanding, are completely alive to that point and have been working together to ensure that for some time now, albeit for obvious reasons, I'm not in those conversations, but that's certainly my understanding. In terms of the partnership working that I alluded to earlier and you've talked about as well, I've already asked the team here, including the CFO, to set up a task and finish group to look at the contractual basis and the constitutional basis for partnership working to make sure, particularly, I have to say, in the event of LGR, that actually, to my mind, is the single biggest risk and not so much devolution, because so much of the partnership working is contingent on the authorities. And if we took something like NIDAS, for example, that's constituted in a way that enables internal restructuring, but the contract and constitution doesn't enable external restructuring. So there's an element of work that I would certainly welcome your support as well with your colleagues in your respective authority areas to engage with as that sort of moves forward, to make sure that bluntly, as as and when we move into a different local authority model, that those partnerships don't fall because we haven't taken the time to put in a variation on contracts, for example, to sort of enable that to happen. So again, for very obvious reasons, we're at the earliest possible stage of that, but I wanted you to be aware that that conversation has already started. We've been talking about that for a few weeks now and just started to look at that. Now we have a time frame, of course, we're better enabled to actually set that up in earnest. And I expect that to run alongside as a part of the major piece of work that the team needs to undertake. And yes, and sorry, for the other reason on the and crime element, that again just reinforces the need to pay early attention to the delivery plan and again reinforces the fact that I'm alive to respecting the boundaries of my term, particularly for things like NIDAS, where we have multi-organisational funding streams into that. There is a bigger conversation around that to ensure that all of those kind of incredibly valuable resources within the county are sustained over this period as well. So apologies to mush up devolution and LGR, but it is such a Gordian knot. And I think, with respect to the panel, enabling and supporting, that from my point of view is a really clear area of work where you could have a really substantive ability to sort of influence within your authority areas.
Yeah, absolutely so. And there are obviously things that go on in localities that are supported by district level councils because there's something that works physically within their patch, and we've got to make sure that they don't slip through the net with LGR and end up, with a funding problem when they're delivering brilliant outcomes for the people of Norfolk. So, Mike, Councillor Sands, I've got you next, please.
Thank you, Chair. Describing the situation as a Gordian knot, I think, is a great analogy. I think we're all in new territory here, and I don't think any of us have a full or complete understanding of what's going on. But just to clarify in my mind, I may be completely wrong here, what we are saying is once we have the mayoralty elections, the Office of Police and Crime Commissioner will continue in Norfolk and in Suffolk in some capacity, but it may be a slightly different model, may involve or probably will involve new elections. Am I right in that, or any other clarification that can be given?
I think it'll sit within the Mayor's office, and I mean, it may be that a Mayor takes a deputy to carry out those roles, who knows? But that will be down to those that are elected. Sarah, if you've got any further insight. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, Councillor Sand, it isn't immediately obvious, and I do feel slightly like I need a flip chart to kind of draw out the timeline, so we'll just sort of use our imaginative faculty. The whole situation is, as I say, made much more complicated by the fact that we have, we're working towards a mayoralty for both Norfolk and Suffolk. And my understanding is that there is no intention to bring constabularies together. For example, I know that there's been a lot of noise about that kind of proposition in the press over recent weeks, but that isn't something, as far as I am aware, which is being actively considered. So the proposition as it currently stands, as I understand it, so I do keep having to caveat that because, as you'll appreciate, it's sort of rapidly changing, is that we have the mayoral elections in May next year. The Police and Crime Commissioners for Norfolk and Suffolk, i.e. myself and Mr Parsonmore in Suffolk, continue in post. We continue to deliver the statutory functions, as we do now, across policing and crime until the 1st of April 2027. At that point, the Police and Crime Commissioner function, that legal function, is incorporated into the mayoralty. So there are no elections. The mayor simply assumes legally that that function as of the 1st of April 2027, and then would delegate it down to perhaps one, perhaps two, who knows, deputy mayors. That's usually the way. Whether that is legislated for or not remains to be seen. But the normal sort of course of events is that the mayor would delegate that down to a deputy, who is then the lead on police and crime commissioner function, albeit that the mayor legally retains that role. So, for example, if we look at West Yorkshire, excuse me, Tracy Brabin is the Police and Crime Commissioner. That is delegated to her Deputy Mayor, Alison Lowe. So decisions are made or delegated to a large extent to Alison Lowe as the Deputy in charge of Police and Crime. But Tracy Brabin is the signatory as the legal holder. Does that make more sense of the situation?
Yes, Mike, certainly.
Yeah, it does. That's sort of how I understood it. But one of the things I'm curious about is, as you say, a deputy essentially taking on the executive functions of Police and Crime Commissioner. I can be, again, completely wrong here. Does this mean that when the mayoralty elections come around, they will have a nominated, any candidate will have a nominated deputy for Norfolk and a nominated deputy for Suffolk on their ticket, so we know what to expect, so to speak?
No, I don't think that's what's happened elsewhere previous. I think the mayor announces once they are elected. So, Sarah, you've got...
There are some well, I was going to say perhaps helpful analogy, but maybe not, because we've not particularly had it in Norfolk. So the Police and Crime Commissioner is able to have a deputy currently. That is legislated for, and most police and crime commissioners do. I was in the blissful ignorance of May last year, thought that I'd gear up, and then as the workload came on, perhaps then look to bring a deputy on, you know, as the workload increased, and to have more of an impact in Norfolk. But for, again, obvious reasons, that hasn't come to pass. So what's happened in other mayoralities is that no one ever stands on a joint ticket. I don't believe that that's ever happened, but clearly some mayors will have people in mind as they come forward. Others, if we look at South Yorkshire, for example, the mayor there he's been in place for more than a year and has only just put in a deputy for police and crime, because my understanding is that he wanted to understand the police and crime landscape first so that he could make a then sound decision on who he brought in to run that. Other places have had someone in mind as they've run for election as well. So it isn't normally the case that they run on a ticket jointly.
Thank you. Stuart, you want to come back in?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't swing the lamp that often, but even going back a number of years in London, if you look at the experience of London, we had a mayor who was Boris Johnson. He decided to appoint Stephen Greenhaw as his deputy mayor with responsibility for policing, and that was his decision around how that took place, which is exactly what's being described here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Excellent. So with that news, I'll say excellent, but thank you for that news. We kind of knew eventually we'd hear, but we now know what's happening, so that's helpful. Panel, we've obviously got the report as presented from page 61 onwards. Any comments, questions relating to the report as presented? Stuart, you're back in on this one.
Thank you, and I don't really want to kind of go too much into the detail given the demands on the staff at the moment, but just in relation to page 67, both my questions relate into increases, one welcome, one not so. Under 3.3, the number of GBH offences has gone up compared to the last 12 months. I just wondered whether we've got an understanding within that whether it's more offenders or are there repeat offenders in there where, you know, more prevention work might be able to assist. And then the other one was in relation to the organised crime network disruptions. There's been a significant increase in those. I think one of them was 146% increase in the amount of disruptions occurring. Just wanted to know whether that was is there new figures, the way we compile the figures leading to that increase? Is it more police activity or more effective police activity or a combination of both? I just want to make certain that we're comparing like with like when we see that much of an increase. So that's the two questions, one around GBHs and the other one around OCN disruptions. Thank you.
Commissioner, you got any insight to those?
Yeah, I don't have the exact information that you have, excuse me, asked for on the GBH point. Excuse me. I forgot to take my antihistamines, and I think the rain's affecting, so apologies if I just cough today. So no, the short answer is I don't have any separation of the two. Clearly, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the trend around GBH more sort of generally, and if you recall within the police and crime plan,
and sexual assaults that seem to be going up and up and up.
Absolutely sort of key. So to your point around prevention, that's certainly being considered and being actively considered in terms of any further decisions that I can make going forward. With respect to the
crime commissioner is there.
With respect to the serious organised crime, the disruptions, I think we may have discussed here before that
Sarah Taylor, that is the crime commissioner, isn't it? Sarah Taylor.
Means
Sarah
that
Taylor.
disrupting it is a longitudinal matter. You know, it's not a singular sort of event, it's a process, and you've got cite in the papers of some of the work that's been done over time by the constabulary. My understanding is that the numbers are directly comparable. If I'm correct on that, I will come back to you, but that is my understanding, and it doesn't necessarily reflect a change in the dynamics on the ground. It's about the work that's being done more widely and with partners as well.
With Vinted's new categories, you can now sell even more pre-loved.
Wowzers, right. We are just going to have a little look at this email that I've written. Before I send it off, I'm going to make sure, if I can do the right button. There we go. Right. So this is the email I've just written. So good morning, Wendy, and good morning, Graham. Just to follow up on Saturday's quick conversation at the Trackside event, which went very well from my point of view. Well done, Wendy and team. But rolling out one or two more legal spots in North Walsham, I thought I'd get the emails flowing. Because of the state of the bridge over near the dog park, I thought this would be a good place to start with allowing artists to use these two walls to graffiti. I think it would help considerably to brighten up this area of North Walsham West and the bridge itself. Secondly, the walkway under the rail bridge on Cromer Road, that also could be used and have refreshing graffiti to make it more appealing when walking through. Not sure what part of North Walsham that comes under, but they are the two main areas I would like to see improved. With the new build at Station Road, the plans are to open up access to the Weavers Way pathway, so the thoroughfare will increase, which will hopefully reduce any crime intentions along that route. Not that there is any, but just thinking aloud. Greater Anglia doesn't seem bothered with the state of that bridge, and seeing that this is and has been a graffiti spot for some time, could we please have some decent artists come along to remove, at the council's cost of maybe advertising this legal spot once in a while, to update more designs. Cromer Road underpath certainly ensures a dry spot in the winter for graffiti to happen. The prints that clearly was placed there for the underpath has been graffitied over anyway. So again, could we encourage some decent stuff? What have I done there? Spelt it wrong. If all is needed is a plaque in place with agreement, could the council cover the costs and ensure these plaques are to go in place with the police support of acknowledgement? Looking forward to seeing this happen and keeping graffiti positive in these areas designated, as well as the boards over at Trackside. Kind regards. Yeah, one of the things that I got told yesterday by a chap over on Instagram who is a graffiti artist is in the winter when it gets wet. They have less places to go, so I'm kind of thinking the underpath would, and it's quite open there. You've got the houses and you've got the road, so I think that'll be okay. Right, I am going to send that just like that. The other thing that I need to do is just sort out in resending okay, this was the ewemail that I sent to Colin at North Walsham Christmas Light at gmail.com. That is the email address. So I'm going to send it again. When was that? That was the 12th. So I'm going to send that one off again and hopefully hear back. How do I reset? Oh, do I forward? I need to think about that one, what I need to do with that one. In the meantime, I'm going to carry on having a little bit more of a listen as I try and figure out that next email.
And obviously residential burglary is different to robbery in that regard. But those three stats, the neighbourhood crime, the residential burglary and the vehicle offences, I wonder if you had any insight into what the Chief Constable's action plan for those are.
So we definitely have a slightly different interpretation of this, Chair. So the long-term, against the long-term average, there's an increase on neighbourhood crime and vehicle offence, which I think is welcomed. With respect to the residential burglary, and I would just say that that's relevant purely because we all know that when you're dealing with, this is more relevant on the residential burglary side, but when you're dealing with relatively small numbers, very small absolute numbers of change have a larger proportional change within the percentages. So with respect to the burglary element, the number of crimes is still too many, clearly, especially with what is a very challenging crime to experience. But as a broadly speaking, that is holding relatively steady. I think there is something to be said around that, just respecting the low levels of burglaries that happen within the county. I think we are the third lowest in the country, if memory serves me correctly. So I think the variance on the percentages is perhaps a result of that.
Yes, yeah. Obviously, if the sample amount is a lot smaller number, you know, it's yeah. I get that it's going to skew the figures. Notwithstanding that, obviously, I looked at I compared it against the previous 12 months rather than the long-term average. But as you say, if you compare the figures against the long.
Thing is, in Norfolk, in different parts of the country have different things. That's what I'm grasping. Okay, there's different pockets of different crimes in different areas. And I mean, we've still got this area that I'm still not happy about. Violence and sexual offences. Now, how do we deal with that, being Little North Norfolk? I mean, all other crimes, do you think burglary would come under that? Let's have a look. Burglary, 3. We've had 3 burglaries in North Walsham in July. But yet the most which shows on here 38 in North Walsham and 54 around Knapton and Bacton. Shoplifting 4, North Walsham. This is July. I'm still waiting for them to update this drugs 4. I don't actually know what other theft means. So if we go to sexual offences, we can see on or near Gooch Close 9. Five in Sadler's Way. On or near Sports Recreation Area. I'm just looking for on or near North Walsham Road 2. It's like reading out Sunday morning football scores. Cromer Road 1. Okay. We have serious collision in Scunthorpe. I want to put an N in it for some reason. Hoverton, Fakenham, Overstrand, sentenced. So,
amount of sort of traditional burglary break-ins has been in decline, because you can, thieves can just sit at home and hack your computer and ring you on the phone and try and extract your bank details a lot easier than they can go around breaking in these days. Or that's what perception is. But crime has changed, I think, is what I'm trying to say.
That's of course true. The other thing that I would just say, in terms of just answering your question directly around talking with the Chief Constable and the sort of strategy around this, is that you'll be aware of the work that is being prioritised around the neighbourhood policing guarantee. And I know that there is some overlap. It isn't a tenuous connection between the summer. I know the weather today speaks to a challenge on that, but the Keeping the High Street Safe this summer initiative that the Home Office is running with, and that we're actively participating both within this office and within partners, and of course within the constabulary. So there is a lot of work, and it's multi-layered as well, but in terms of the percentages, that would be my interpretation of it.
Okay, thank you. I've got Stacey next, please.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner, I was really interested to see the highlight of the report around violence against women and girls, which was published earlier this month. I'm interested to understand how far you're assured that we've got robust mechanisms in place to measure the impact of services to violence for women and girls who've been on the receiving end of violence, because I think the essence of that report nationally was
Stacey Palmer.
In most cases we're not seeing good measurement around that, or good understanding of impact. So how far do you feel assured that we've got that in Norfolk? And then a second point was just around Objective 4 in relation to hate crime, and we've kind of referenced earlier today around the increase in sort of tensions locally around particular sort of political decisions in relation to migrants and things. How far are you sort of working with partners around managing that community tension, and also the narrative and messaging that we're seeing in the media locally?
Find out with us.
Oh, yeah, a crucial point. Flamingos.
Thank you. On the first point around the VOG crime, I think it would be disingenuous to say that I'm supremely confident. There are issues with it, and that isn't a Norfolk specific thing. That is, as you've alluded to, that's a national sort of concern. And there's been a lot of discussion, again, between the PCCs, not least, and with other organisations around how this is measured. I think it's fair to say that a lot of my peers, my colleagues, and I would welcome real clarity on that. And it's disappointing that we haven't seen quite as much from the government as we might have hoped. I think that's fair to say. I know there is a lot of work going on in the background, which I'm not sort of actively participating in. You might recall that PCCs have specific portfolios that they look after, and mine is not in that space. But I talk with colleagues who are involved in that, and there is work ongoing. So I would just say that I am extremely keen to have sight of that early and to have sight of more funding, bluntly, to enable some of this to happen. Within the constabulary, we know that there has been, well, every time there's a PAM meeting and all of those kind of opportunities to talk with the Chief Constable and his team around this, that discussion happens. The constabulary is really active in grappling with this within that organisation and working with partners, being very mindful of results that have come out of HMIC FRS reports, not only to do with the constabulary here, but elsewhere as well, sort of thematics. And things like the DA Matters training has been really well rolled out through to supporting the MASH here and NIDAS. There is a huge amount of work ongoing. I know that doesn't specifically relate to the recording part, but hopefully in terms of my assurance, that is what I have been looking at. In terms of your second question with regards to hate crime, it is really, really concerning, the changing kind of landscape that we all find ourselves living in at the moment. And I am extremely sensitive to that. And I have been really encouraged by the amount of work that is happening within partners, particularly...
Said Sarah Tyler, the Crime Commissioner of Norfolk.
In the last PAM, we talked about the SHIN training, and I'm really interested to look at if and how me or my office can help support the greater rollout of that. I think that could be a really powerful thing to do, particularly within businesses and perhaps within the nighttime economy. And I know that the BID is working on a proposition to improve safety within the nighttime economy as well, which I really welcome. That said, we are all alive to the various Supreme Court judgments that have come out, which are necessarily making some people feel more vulnerable, and it's changing the way necessarily that the police are able to interact with certain types of events. And I have to stress this is based on 1 or 2 words within a Supreme Court judgment. As always, it is on fine points of detail, but the outcome of it can really change how people feel in relation to the police, and that I am extremely sensitive to. And I've been talking with the team about what I can do to help redress that as well, and I have spoken with the Chief Constable only this week on that matter as well, to understand what more we can do collectively to improve and remediate that situation.
Thank you. I've got...
Just quickly, I've just had an email sent back. I've got one back from Graham Green. He's currently out of office, but will be back on the 26th. So that's kind of cool. And also, I have now got an undelivered message because of the Christmas lights. So the Christmas light email that was at the bottom of the letter that was sent to Norfolk Raw, it's not working. So that's where we're up to on that.
Vice Chairman next, and then I've come to Councillor Dark. Sarah, please.
Thank you. Commissioner, we've just been talking about the increase in hate crime, which is sad to see across everywhere. Unfortunately, as elected members, sometimes we are on the receiving end of comments or literature or emails that come our way following things we've said in public. I understand there was Operation Ford, and Operation Ford has now become Operation Bridger. We had an incident last week and we didn't know who our named officer was. I wonder if, and I understand through the programme there is supposed to be a named officer, I wonder whether you could talk to the Chief Constable, please, and find out who that is for us, so that all our authorities can be made aware, so if we need to contact them, we can.
Yeah, well, the simple answer to that is yes, of course, I will. I really want to stress that matters like this absolutely do not need to wait until the panel. Please get in touch with me if there's any concern. I know that other councillors and elected representatives have from time to time when there has been perhaps a little bit of lack of clarity. I am aware that the terms of Oxbridge changed after the general election, so understandably that is just period into an operational, politically operational period, but very happy to pick that up for you.
Thank you very much. I've got one or two other points, but I'll...
No, please.
Okay. So one of the things I picked up from this report is I found a lot of it, if we can't as councillors and as independent co-opted members work it out for ourselves from the charts, then I'm not sure we should be doing the job, because I found it very basic information, and what I was hoping for was deeper dive into the information. So one of our co-opted members has just asked there about women and girls and the treatment, you know, the numbers of that. I wanted to look at that and see where it was going, and I couldn't see it, and then I had to go through to page, I think it was 87 in the report, to find that data. So the data was there, but it was in a different place. The
thing is, right, she had to get to 80 something, however big, what, everything's just turning into paperwork, really, isn't it? It's just paperwork, just crazy.
Having said that, I then take what you've just said about the arrangements changing within your office. And obviously now is not the time to be asking for new reports and different things like that. I absolutely understand that. But if there are places we can be pointed to, if there's information online, so that we can back up our knowledge, because I think it's really important that, you know, we understand more deeply exactly what's going on here. If I turn to
absolutely
motoring, and the people here will know that motoring is one of my favourite topics and the problems there. But again, those are all going in the wrong direction. And is there data behind that? Do we know, are those people that are being affected car drivers? Are they motorcyclists? Are they cyclists? And then I would ask you how confident you are that the plans you've got in place are actually having any impact on those. But without the information on knowing where those accidents are being caused, I've no way of knowing whether your actions are going to have an impact on those. Do you see what I mean?
Yep, I do. So I think there's a couple of, if I just tease out the various points. So with regards to the data in the report, there was a emphatic and unambiguous requirement from this panel to really stop the weighty tomes of information. So through quite a number of discussions, the papers have been refined by the team to basically not duplicate nationally available information, not duplicate information that's available on the Constabularies or the Office of the PCC's website. It sounds as though perhaps a couple of URLs in the footnotes may help to just enable that a little bit more readily. Perhaps we're just, you know, just popping a couple of URLs in might be a way of just joining those dots up for you.
Would be great. I'm sorry, I'm so used to the old reports that were so full.
You're fine. It's a constant challenge to try and give everyone what they want. Can I just to be totally clear, when you were talking about the vehicle, are you talking about road safety? Which bit were you talking about?
So I'm talking about
killed, seriously injured figures.
Which bit?
Killed, seriously injured figures,
Yeah.
and the way they're rising.
Yeah.
And if you look at our performance against other areas of the country, we're still, and it's a constant concern.
Yeah.
You know, I was aware of 2 quite serious accidents in North Norfolk yesterday afternoon.
Yep.
And it's if we knew a bit more about it, then we'd...
This was back in July, remember.
...draft of information about what you're doing and what the police force are doing, but I don't know how effective they're being in helping where those figures are coming from.
So you might recall that before this job, this was my day job, and the reason why I stood for this job in the first place was because professionally I could see that Norfolk was an outlier, and the fact that we have an increasing number of people dying or being seriously injured on our roads, I think, is outrageous. And it does not have to happen. Now, and I think I think this is, well, I don't think, I know. This is a politically neutral comment, right? And I can substantiate it with evidence if you want it.
Just quickly, speaking to the ladies at the First Aid Tent on Saturday with their job roles and how much they do voluntary within Norfolk, because Norfolk is rural, that these accidents have knock-on effects. Do you know what I mean? Because it's another... It's like another agency, so to speak, where there's no funding. You know, why do we have to keep relying on volunteers to help? Or, you know, let's take a look at Mind. You know, the knock-on effect of having a car accident, the insurance, the injury, the people that help you with the injury, the hospital, but then your own mental health, you know, of coming out of that. Oh, it's just a mess, absolute mess. So much needs to be tied.
There is a...
And I don't think they are. And we've got devolution coming up.
It's motor normative, so the sense that cars existing, vehicles existing, is a normal part of life. That we accept it, that we accept deaths and serious injuries implicitly in the way that society is run. And my experience so far has been that is alive and well in Norfolk. And within, I do need to say this, not exclusively, right, but it is there within some of the organisations and the approach to road safety. It is somewhat away from best practice. So I have been working with officers in Norfolk County Council Highways team, which to their absolute credit have been completely sort of receptive and really like professionally eager to learn more. A few months ago, I arranged a visit for Road Safety Partnership partners to go and visit another office where their Road Safety Partnership is about 4 years downstream from where we are now in terms of using a best practice approach, which is one called a safe system approach. And whilst we in Norfolk have adopted, in policy terms, a safe system approach, it isn't realised in practice. So there is a huge gap. A lot of that it rests with county council decisions as the highway authority. Again, that's just a fact. Some of it, for sure, rests with the way that risk is used to make things like deployment decisions by the police. And I am in discussion with the police on that matter because it's such a huge paradigm shift to them. To be fair, it's a huge paradigm shift to everybody to understand that. But that conversation is ongoing and has been very positive within the newly stood up Road Safety Partnership Strategic Board. Everyone is receptive, everyone is keen to move forward on it, but because it's still quite a new thing, in Norfolk it's a very new thing, there is understandably a getting to grips with what this means sort of process, which for me is, because I'm quite impatient by nature, quite frustrating, but I'm very, very happy that people are engaging with it, and I'm really encouraged that that will lead to positive change. From my perspective, I would love more elected members to become really engaged with that as well, so that we as a body can advocate more convincingly for the residents that we represent. The safe system approach is different from the kind of classic or tradition approach. And I think, you know, I would welcome any time a conversation with elected members to
I mean, these approaches have got to be
develop
other
that
policies,
understanding
haven't they?
within our representation here in Norfolk, because even that will help move things forward as well.
A GDST, Junior School.
To say Norfolk County members have a local member fund that can be focused on safety improvements within their divisions and actually getting best utilisation at that with the knowledge that you know you're now imparting to us and want to provide. I think that will help focus how that money is spent, because there's been huge numbers of parish partnership bids for SAM2 safety signs. The data is all gathered and doesn't necessarily lead to any change apart from realising the fact that there is a problem in certain villages that they were aware of, which is why they funded the cameras in the first place. So we've got to sort of
yes, exactly,
to turn that data that's being gathered into some form of action to actually help prevent the problems. You're shaking your head.
I am shaking my head because, Chair, you've picked up on almost like the perfect example. So SAMs 2 are, to a large extent, they're great. They are useful. They do give data, but they don't give the right data. The information that you get out of it just is not usable in a highways engineering sense. You cannot get... all you
oh, what a bloody waste of money then.
Just get it smushed. Sorry, I keep whacking this way. You just get data kind of smushed together. I even this week had another bit of correspondence from a parish council in North Norfolk, funnily enough, saying well, we've got this funding and we're being told by SAMs 2, but we don't really see how it can be used. Like, what else can we do? So putting my professional hat on, we just need to invest in a different sort of survey, you know. But short of giving the whole of Norfolk
surveys,
free consultancy advice for the next 18 months, you know, that is such a good example of a policy shift that needs to change. Because parish councils, it is my experience that there is great homogeneity. I have yet to meet a parish council that isn't concerned about speeding or road safety in their area. Like I just have not had one.
No, I haven't.
But unfortunately, there is a gap between people's appetite and need to pay that attention in their local areas, and then the way that the highway authorities are meeting that demand. And so if I look at, and I say but this is available to anyone if you've got a few hours of your life to spare, the way that highways safety is dealt with in Norfolk is somewhat different to how it's dealt with in other areas. The fact that it's shared over different directorates presents something of a barrier sometimes. It isn't just about road safety, it's about incorporating or creating a safe system.
There was a edit cut there, wasn't there?
Every time we touch a road, which is why when I talk about enforcement and the police, I want to understand how they're making decisions about where to go and do that enforcement. Is it based on risk, or is it based on keeping the roads open? They're very different things. You know, road maintenance, is it based on, I'll exaggerate for effect, is it just focused on getting rid of as many potholes as possible? Or is it doing that in a way that reflects good practice in terms of keeping cyclists and vulnerable users safe? And the two are not mutually incompatible, but unless you directly pay attention to that last point, you won't ever get it. So, and that is the kind of scale of the journey that we're on. It isn't just about the road safety team here. It isn't just about the enforcement teams within the police. It's about vehicle manufacturers, the fleet owners, the elected members, everybody increasing their knowledge on this. So every time we have any chance to tweak anything on the roads, we're doing it and we're all pulling in the same direction. Anyway, that's my great vision. Now I've only got 18 months, so I'm almost certainly not going to realise it, but every time we can talk about it, we can help move things forward a little bit.
Yeah, and that raising awareness with local members and actually being able to direct sometimes away from the traditional and get into a different way of thinking about things. There's obviously best practice in other parts of the country, and we need to be learning it. So thank you. I've got Stuart, and then I've got Stacey. Stuart.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And it was mentioned by the Commissioner earlier on just around the increase in hate crime and also the kind of the volatility that's out in society at the moment around this. And I just wanted to touch on something around that in terms of mutual aid. One of the issues for us is, and I'm sure a number of us saw in the press recently, that we had officers from Norfolk injured elsewhere in the country, and I hope they have a speedy and full recovery. But the issue around it is short-term mutual aid impacts on not only the staff that go and their families, impacts on the staff that are behind because there's potentially more work for them, and quite clearly it may impact on the ability of the PCC and the force to deliver the plan of what's here in Norfolk if our officers are going elsewhere. So I just wanted to have an understanding from the Commissioner as to whether the amount of mutual aid is increasing or whether we're concerned it might, and what we're doing around making certain that actually our officers are able and capable of delivering the plan still locally given those increased demands, if that makes sense.
Yeah, indeed, Sarah.
The question does indeed make sense. So
there's another edit there.
The provision of mutual aid is a business as usual aspect of policing. It's part of the strategic policing requirement, and that happens. Norfolk is this, again, perhaps not the words that the Chief Constable would use clearly, but they are a willing sort of participant in that, as you and I would expect. Now, more recently, I'm not aware of an increase in the draw and demand, but certainly with respect to the impact on the people involved and on their families, you know, to your wider question, that is something that I talked about with the Chief Constable at length last summer, because there was a huge amount of mutual aid used last summer in various ways. And I've also been talking about it at a national level as well, because of my portfolio work around the workforce. And there is quite considerable work ongoing with respect to basically officer and staff welfare, and it does not exclude that area of work as well. So there is a lot of conversation happening about it. It's an area of business that people are really alive to, and I'm seeing that in the work that I'm sort of actively participating in. Whilst that means I can't tell you, oh yes, this thing is going to happen to sort of directly improve things, I hope I can give you some assurance that that is an area of business that is active and which is ongoing and which is taken very seriously.
Stacey, I've got you next, please.
Thank you. Commissioner, within the appendix item, which discusses the delivery plan and each item in some detail, there's a mention on B10 of a series of metrics being introduced in relation to the plan itself. And I was wondering if you could describe to us what those metrics are and whether or not we will see those in future reports. And then the second point is almost linked to the earlier conversation around the term that you have left leading into 2027, and noting that within the plan we have the ambition around the victim's choice quality mark, and that's clearly been delayed till 2027. So whether you have sort of any initial thoughts on how we might still monitor the quality of services for victims in this interim period if that quality mark is not going to be a prospect anytime soon.
Yep. Okay, so with respect to...
See, this is where it comes into healthcare.
You'll see that is, and apologies if this has not been super clear, so that is the work that the team has done to create the new papers, which we've talked about, just finessing, tweaking a little bit. That comes forward first in the PAM meetings, because it's really around that and looking at the holding the police to account on those. So you'll see that the new metrics for the police and crime plan have been introduced. It's sort of mentioned within the progress update, albeit with little sort of tweaks as and when required. On the question around the quality mark, this isn't just complicated by the term. It's also because the services for victim support have been re-tendered. So in terms of, so it just wasn't possible to bring it in any sooner because of that process, basically. In terms of the quality assurance, which is what you're asking, the team around commissioning have that ongoing process of checks and balances, and certainly that keeps them busy with other awards, and I would expect that to happen in exactly the same way, particularly on the standing up of the team to then deliver that service going forward.
Thank you. I've got Sarah next. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to start with a really positive thing. I was looking at the response times to 999 calls, and I think we should all pass our thanks to those that are taking those calls, especially with the increase in numbers that they're dealing with. I think that's a really, really positive step forward, and I think, you know, this committee should pass its thanks back to the constabulary so those people know that their hard work is not going unnoticed. And then I wanted to ask about, on page 75 of your report, you talk about designated police officers, and 4.2 talks about, you know, the manifesto pledge from the government to increase visible policing. When we come down to 4.4, I see you've got 17 new police officers and 14 new members of police staff. Now, I understand that's an operational question, but I wondered whether you could tell us how you feel about that, and whether you know if those people are forward-facing. Would the public recognise those as visible people in that office?
Yeah, or are they pen pushers?
So this is a pleasingly easy one to answer, in that the answer is yes, it is. So the way that it's been established is that the constabulary has to satisfy various requirements for officers, neighbourhood facing officers, to be deemed to be that under the neighbourhood policing guarantee. So the use of the word guarantee is not a light touch in this instance. There's a huge amount of work actually in order to demonstrate that and give assurance to the Home Office on that. So I think you absolutely can be assured on that point. Obviously we'd love more, and hopefully we will get more, but it's a good start. With respect to the 999 call handlers, I also just wanted to share with you that I've talked with the Chief Constable a number of times around this, and I completely echo your thoughts on that. I think it's just great to see that sort of consistent move, not least because of the inspectorate's requirements. Calls take so much longer now. Each one takes so much longer than it did in the past. So it's not just the volume of the calls that's increasing, it's the duration of the calls as well. They are really lengthy now, which on the one hand, a really high level of diligence around that. But I just wanted to reflect on that as well. It isn't just a volumetric thing. The time component is very substantial. And so talking with the chief around what the...
But doesn't that help, because you're recording
the
phone call,
what that might look like
for
going
what's
forward.
happening,
I think
so
there's
you're
a reasonable
hearing.
expectation that that could increase, just as it has done. And so already talking about if and how more support might be provided into the CCR to address that timeliness point, in terms of how long each call takes, what, if anything, can be done to really support those call handlers to expedite that as well. So I just wanted to let you know that. And then the other thing was not only the people who are already in place, but the people coming through on recruitment.
I can't tell if you meant that in a positive or negative way.
Days, and my goodness, they get a grilling. It was really, I think it's absolutely testament to the team that in that.
It's so funny. Sorry, Andrex.
Really do go through that recruitment process. They come into it with their eyes wide open then about what the work is. So I just also wanted, as well as echoing that point, I wanted to basically just give a bit of a hat tip to the team that are on the training and the recruitment side of it, because from my perspective, having now seen them a number of times, they really are doing a phenomenal job to make sure that pipeline of people is there consistently over time as well.
That's brilliant to hear. I had one last question, one last point, and maybe I'm not down with the kids on this one. But I was looking at some of the, boy oh boy, do you come up with a lot of different operational names for things. But I was looking at some and it said you were promoting them widely on social media. So I sort of went for Operation Oilman just out of interest. And when I looked it up on social media, and I went to what I would consider some of the things my niece and nephew would go to, not necessarily me, I couldn't find it. I just got lots of pictures of men on oil rigs, which wasn't quite what I was looking for. And I just wonder whether you can explain if you're happy with how things are being promoted and where they're being promoted, just because your office had a nice piece about it, but nothing else.
Yeah,
I think Councillor Buttercover must clear her search history if that's what she's been Googling. Other search platforms are available, Commissioner.
Yeah, hopefully I can clarify this quite easily. The way that, and I'm just hopefully not going to disturb things too much, I'm just going to have a small foray into the constabulary sort of area, just in terms of my observations. So that my observations are that they hardly ever, if ever, use those operational names. Very occasionally they'll use an operation or a project name where it's part of a national piece of work. I believe that they do occasionally use it with respect to things like Project Vigilant, because quite a number of people are aware of that and it's a national sort of scheme. But my experience tells me that when the constabulary's comms team deliver those social media messages, it tends to be about the actual work and the actual outcome for people who are living or working here, rather than it being badged specifically with that operation name. So I hope that clarifies.
That makes a lot more sense. Thank you.
It does, and we would hate to think someone spends ages and ages coming up with operational names that sound, with it and whatever. But there we go. Looking around the room, I haven't seen any more hands up. We've got obviously a requirement that we, well, first off, thank you very much, Commissioner, for your answers to the questions as requested. Are there any particular recommendations that we would like to put forward? I've got a very small request. The Appendix B, my eyes, I struggle with that. I probably need to get my glasses refreshed, but I don't know if that can, that's a formatted thing when it gets stuck into our agenda. And I think on a computer, you can probably zoom it and do, but on a printed one, it's very small. And I'm thinking right down the bottom of the eye chart and me struggling. So we'll have to try and look at that to get that easier to read. Not least that members of the public might go online and look at the agendas and want to read those details too. So that's one just asked from myself.
That'd be nice.
And then in addition to that, obviously, Commissioner, you asked, you offered that you would provide the details for those link officers for Operation Bridger. So I mean, if they can be circulated, that would be helpful.
I said I would ask the question.
You'd ask the question.
It will not come from me, but I will certainly ask the question. And as I said, because I know that there was a shift operationally in Bridger from the campaign period into this politically operational period. So I will certainly go back to the constabulary on that for you.
Excellent, thank you. Look forward to hearing back. Any other recommendations that we wish to make, Councillor Buttercover?
Put something in writing to that team in the operations room, the 999 call handlers. Because otherwise they won't, I would doubt many of them actually listen to this and hear that we want to thank them.
Superb idea. Committee, we all agreed that...
Send them a nice card and some chocolates. A celebration box.
For that improved performance.
Or heroes. Everybody likes heroes, don't they? Heroes.
All agreed. Stuart?
Yeah, Chair, I agree. The only challenge I'd push back with that is that elsewhere within the report, if you look at the organised crime group disruptions going up by 146%, it's kind of singling out one group and thanking them for great work and not another may be counterproductive. So I do think we need to be a bit
good point.
Careful. Maybe if we actually
good point.
A more generic one of actually the areas of improvement within the report, and then make sure that it gets in front of the right people, and then that way we're not potentially causing division by singling out.
Oh, fuck off. Just send a nice bloody card and be done with it, for goodness sake. Stop worrying about worrying.
Is very welcome, isn't it?
Just because one group's going to be left out.
Continuation of that, and you know, it's going to have knock-on effects beyond the kicking the doors down and doing what they do. So
maybe they should be 2 targeted letters.
2 targeted.
Because there is an awful lot in the report where the numbers are going the wrong way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can absolutely see your point about that particular area, and
that's like being a kid, isn't it? Nowadays, you're in it to participate, not to win. No one's allowed to chair.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is perhaps if we highlight the areas in the report that we do feel have gone up as the committee in a generic letter, and then send that out from both of you, and we can make sure through the PCC's office that it gets to the right departments. But what I wouldn't want to do is, knowing how hard organised crime group disruptions are and how many people work on those, to actually have that in the same report as the other one and not actually acknowledge both might not be.
I think that's something that is...
This is where we start overthinking about people's feelings
of the meetings.
to a certain degree.
Is that okay, Sarah? You see where we're coming from?
I did, just because, at risk of sounding unduly belligerent, I just did want to slightly, gently push back on the idea that there is a lot in this which is going in the opposite direction. Through the discussions with the Chief, I think there is an enormous amount of good work done by the constabulary. For sure, there are lessons that could be learned in different areas, but I did just want to put on record that I do disagree with that point and just would kindly push back on that. In terms of the letters, I would really welcome something of that order going from the panel. I think that bluntly, a lot of, especially the non-visible parts of policing, just do not get the credit that they are due. And of course, the papers that are in front of you will be highly selective because they're reflecting the police and crime plan. So my personal view, given in the spirit with which you're in this discussion, would be that I would really love it if you are able to consider how the panel reflects its congratulations or its positive thoughts back into the constabulary, and perhaps do it in a more sort of not strategic way, but, you know, a more balanced and considered way. But I would really welcome that going from yourselves into the constabulary.
Excellent. Stuart, you want to come back in?
Yeah, Chair, and just to support the PCC's comments, just sometimes we've got to be very careful of the nuance around numbers going up and numbers going down as to good or bad. Because there are some areas within the report, for example, hate crime, it's been acknowledged by the police, that whether it's a confidence thing or whether it's other issues, they'd prefer to see more reports of it. So actually we've got a low figure, but actually high in reporting of domestic violence, serious sex offences, hate crimes, etc., is actually sometimes a positive thing because it shows confidence in the system, and then that can actually be dealt with. So I think we've got to just be a little bit careful around, you know, high numbers are bad, low numbers are good. That's.
I think I should just clarify what I'm trying to say. All I wanted to try and say was the ones that are absolutely outperforming and showing, you know, how good they are. There are some areas I think we would all agree we're unhappy with in this report. Maybe that's a way of better putting it. And we would like to see better numbers. But I'm not saying the rest of police performance is bad, because boy, oh boy, you know, they do an awful lot of work everywhere. And I wouldn't want to think...
The thing is we know that the police have certain targets to meet because it's what the government put on them. Because they haven't got the resources to do everything. So they have to do selected things. So to say, you know, when the numbers are high, it's a bad thing. No, when the numbers are high, it's kind of showing that more money probably needs to be spent in these areas because, I don't know, I'm from the age of prevention is better than cure. You know? And as the 999 guys that take the calls, they are fantastic. I've, on a couple of occasions, had to do 999 in really high stressful moments. And it's a very high stressful job. And I think that's what needs to be taken into account. Why a bit of gratitude is there? Because of their training, for God's sake.
think,
And we need
you know,
more.
that's what I was trying to say, because it's not.
I think we can pick the bones out of that and deal accordingly. Thank you. The other thing I think has become apparent, we'll need to schedule a briefing meeting in relation to what devolution and LGR might be once we know a little bit more about what direction that's going, and obviously there are decisions to be taken in September by the County Council, which will affect devolution.
Oh, it's got to be a mess. It's got to be a mess.
I think a handy thing to get in between now and our next meeting at an appropriate time when the information comes to light. So we'll see when it comes to light and deal accordingly. In addition to that, no other further recommendations. So I thank you for your report. I will now move on to page 99, which is the normal information update from the PCC in terms of what you've been doing operationally here, there and everywhere. Anything you wish to add to the report as presented to us?
Oh, no, go home.
No,
go
thank
home.
you. I think it is broadly representative of everything that's been happening. As you'll appreciate, it has been deliberately somewhat quieter because of the uncertainty. But no, it's a broadly reflective note. And again, thanks to the team. I just wanted to let you know also that part of the map of engagement that is being further refined. I'm quite excited about that, so that it will be much more accessible. Hopefully,
Map of engagement.
well, and keeping everything crossed that the team can get that organised so that the public have greater sight over where that engagement is taking place as well. So it'll be lovely to see the evolution of that piece of work happening over the next few months with any luck.
Thank you. Any questions on the report as presented? Looking around, in which case, thank you.
No, go home.
Moves us on then to page 111,
111.
which is the report on the funding of the panel. As I said,
Well, how much are you going to get paid?
Item 12. We receive grant from the Home Office. It has been a consistent amount of money, I think, right since the beginning of when the panel first began. On page 112, 113, we've got details of our expenditure in this last year and the predictions of what will be needed in future years.
What do you reckon their expenditures are? Taxis?
I think we, as a panel, we need
Don't
to
get
try and
lunch, should they?
live within that settlement arrangement. I think to go beyond the budget that's allocated to us, obviously there are cost implications, financial implications. At the moment, that's being borne wholly by Norfolk County Council as the overseeing body, and I wouldn't want to have to start to proportion out to each of the districts for their contributions. I think it would be much better if we reassess what we do.
Come on, how much?
Where we can make some
How much is your grant?
So that we can live within the money allocated. And obviously, given the news that we've had this morning from the Commissioner, you know, our future and funding will obviously be brought into question. I would think we'll have detail of that, no doubt, from the Home Office. And so to start to spend extra budget would probably be the wrong thing to start doing. But I'd obviously look to the panel for agreement on that as a way forward. I'm not proposing that we make those proposals on the hoof today, but that we do look to it to try and get ourselves within the allocated budget. Sarah.
I'd just like to say I completely second that, Chair. I think we need to work out where we can make some savings ourselves rather than putting any financial burden on councils that are already struggling.
Are we all happy that that's...
Absolutely.
I mean, as I said, that's helpful. We'll give myself and officers a steer. Working with Sarah, we'll try and get ourselves with it, working within our means. And finally, that moves us on to item 13, which is our forward work programme, the schedule of which is presented on page 118, 119. Looks like already we have a very busy meeting for October. Any specific items that members of the panel would like to consider?
Not long to go now, folks. Not long to go now.
Happy to note. In which case, unless I'm told otherwise, that concludes this morning's meeting. Thank you all for your input. Thank you, Commissioner, for your answers. And thank you all, committee members, for your input.
Oh, thank you.
The meeting closed.
Oh, my word. That was a long one, wasn't it? You can tell by my hair and all. Right, that's me done. I shall catch you all later. Cheerio for now.